once Brett lets them in here in just a moment.
Okay, thanks, Kayla.
Okay, you're good to go.
Good afternoon. Welcome to a public meeting of the Indiana Arts Commission. And thanks to COVID-19, this is being convened by Zoom. My apologies to all of you on eye contact. I'm using two screens, so at times I may not be directing eye contact to the right screen. Just starting out, we'd like to provide thanks to Kayla Myers of the Community Foundation of St. Joseph County and to all the Indiana Arts Commission staff. All of them have done a remarkable job with these panels and at a time where there's been just a lot going on with the Indiana Arts Commission and the Community Foundation and needing to bounce a lot of different balls really at the same time. And also thanks to our panelists for going above and beyond the call of duty at a time, which certainly is a different time, I think, for all of us. This is a public meeting of the Indiana Arts Commission. It's convened to review the regional initiative grants for fiscal year 2021 from Region 2, which includes Elkhart, Fulton, Kosciuszko, Marshall, St. Joseph, and Starke counties. I'm Dave Heist. I'm a commissioner from Region 2, and I'll be facilitating the panel today. Today is April 29, 2020, and we're meeting by conference call and streaming live from a webinar. We welcome the applicants who may be listening in today, and we would remind you that you are muted for this review. There is no direct contact or conversation about the evaluation and disposition of applications before, during, or after the panel meeting. At this time, we'd like all the panelists to introduce themselves, stating their name, their occupation, and where they are from the state. So Jessica, do you want to start?
Happy to. Hello, my name is Jessica Dennis. I live in St. Joseph County and am an operations manager for the Esteemed Graduate Program at the University of Notre Dame.
Thank you, Jessica. Kendra.
Hello, my name is Kendra Devine, and I live in St. Joseph County, and I run student services for the local Concord High School in Elkhart.
Thank you, Kendra. Eric.
Hi, I'm Eric Garton. I live in Elkhart County, and I'm the executive director at Wellfield Botanic Gardens here in Elkhart.
Thank you, Erica. Trina.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself so you can hear me. My name's Trina Hoy. Can you all hear me?
We can.
Okay. And I live in Warsaw, and I work in Milford at The Papers in the marketing department. That's all.
Great. Thank you, Trina. And we all have the same challenge of muting and unmuting. So expect that from all of us. Mary.
Yes, thank you. Mary Perrin. I live and work in Starke County, where I'm the office manager for the highway department. I am also the program coordinator for the Constellation of Starke Regional Stellar Communities effort.
Great. Thanks, Mary. Now we'll begin the panel review. And I just want to take a minute to review the process for all of us. I'll announce the application and we will review and ask the first reader to begin the discussion. The first reader will provide their assessment of the application based on the evaluation criteria and their perspective. Panelists note that the applications do not need to be recapped since everyone has had a chance to review the applications. We just need your comments. Once the first reader is completed, I'll ask the second reader to present any new, additional, or opposing comments. We're not looking for a consensus, but just a full evaluation of the different perspectives panelists bring to the table. After the second reader has finished their comments, we'll open the discussion for final comments. And remember, in the interest of time, we're looking for new, additional, or opposing viewpoints. If a panelist has a conflict of interest, and we have 3 on the panel today, that panelist will be placed on hold while the application is reviewed. And then when that application is complete, they'll be brought back in to the meeting automatically, thanks to the IAC staff. Finally, once the application has been reviewed by the full panel, we ask the panel to update their scores on the online system. It's common for scores to change as a result of the broader discussion. The scores do save automatically, and if a panelist loses connection, we can have you regain either by computer or by dialing in, whatever is the easiest. So I'll ask at this point, are there any questions on the process at all? Okay, great. Well, remember, when you want to speak, you'll need to unmute yourself if you want us to hear. So we'll begin with the first application. This is the application for Middlebury Community Public Library, and the first reader is Kendra. Go right ahead.
Okay, ready? Okay. Yeah. This application is from the Middlebury Community Public Library, and overall the application highlighted a desire to combine the arts, education, and music to create a more vibrant community focused through their library. This proposed program, it is its first year that they are proposing this particular program, illustrates a very strong commitment to a high level of artistic excellence that meets the needs of their community and also builds upon their stated goal of expanding the arts in their local community. Their goal as the library also wanted to focus on promoting lifelong learning, enrichment, and community development. So in terms of artistic quality, the program meets those particular goals of the organization and also illustrates a higher level of community engagement. The application showed that the program wanted to intentionally target 3 separate age groups. So they weren't just focused on children's programs or adult programs, they had 3 separate focuses. And the evidence in the application provided how the community was helping to generate the planning and to some degree even the inspiration for the program, and would be involved in evaluating the future of the program and where it held, what events it held in the future. The application also demonstrated that the staff involved in the program were not only qualified, but have experience with similar programs, included highly qualified instructors that are certified in the artistic events that they want to host. And then they also provided evidence for the Jim Gill family concert of that particular group's involvement in their quality as well. And then they provided an appropriate timeline and budget to implement the program. So overall, I found the application to reveal a high level of excellence in I think that's it. I don't have a good ending, sorry.
Thank you, that was a good ending. Appreciate that. The second reader is Trina.
Well, I don't really have anything to add that she didn't already cover. So.
Okay, good. Thanks, Trina. At this point, I'll open it up to all panelists for any additional or opposing comments with respect to the application?
The only thing I would add, I agree with what was said previously. I would have liked to see a little bit more detail on the budget, particularly around the expenses. They just say it's for a painting class or an art, but they don't clarify is that for materials or space or fees for the instructors. I think a little more detail would have been helpful there.
Thanks, Jessica. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to add in the community engagement, I really appreciated their surveys that they had administered to participants at the events. And like to have seen engagement in the community to help advise future plans, maybe for those people who weren't able to come, whether that was through social media or even tracking through some of their communications. So that was a suggestion I had.
Great. Thanks, Eric. I appreciate the suggestion.
And I have something I'd like to add as well. On the surveys, the social media channel feedback, I'm just curious, I think it's great you're doing that. I'm curious how that feedback will be compiled and analyzed as compared to the more traditional types of surveys. Great to collect information both ways. I would like to have a little bit more detail about how you're going to boil down that feedback from your social media.
Great. Thank you. Other comments? Okay. Hearing no other comments, I'd ask all of the panelists to finalize your scores and let me know if you need more time. I'll give us a couple of minutes for you to do that updating and finalization. Okay, just checking in. Does anyone need a little additional information or a little additional time? Okay, good. Thank you again for your work on the first application. At this point, we'll go to the second application, the Robinson Community Learning Center at the University of Notre Dame. And the first speaker is Jessica.
Right. Well, overall, I thought this application was very well done. There is a clear purpose and community that they're serving with this proposed arts project. They've also been doing it for 6 years, so they have lots of previous experience to draw upon. I appreciated the fact that they have lots of different community organizations and community partnerships that they work with to complete their programming. And it seems like they do a really good job of soliciting community feedback and have since the beginning of this project and every year since. I also appreciated that they're really trying to track the impact of their programming through multiple measures. They're really pretty explicit about all the different ways that they get that feedback. I was a little confused kind of organizationally about the difference between the NDCCI and the RCLC, but overall, I don't think that really impacts the grant itself. I would have liked a little bit more information on the planning and marketing activities within their timeline. They clearly have a well thought out plan for the actual program themselves, but some more information about how they market to get their participants and kind of the background that goes into planning all this would have been helpful as well.
Good. Thank you, Jessica. We'll go to the second speaker, Mary.
Yes, thank you. I just was really impressed with this application and the way they have really gone out of their way to ensure the needs of low-income families who would not otherwise have access to this type of programming will be met. What really stuck out to me in that regard was the emphasis on English as a second language families and also accommodation for those with special needs. I found that to be really impressive. And again, just a good diverse section of programming that these families may not otherwise be exposed to, and a variety of things each year. I thought this was overall from a programming standpoint, very well done.
Good. Thank you, Mary. We'll open it up for comments from all. Do we have any additional or opposing comments?
I would like to add an additional comment. The first speaker spoke about the planning, and I would like to add to that. I would have also liked to have a little bit more thorough timeline into terms of planning, because I recognized that they needed to recruit staff every year. And I was a little concerned about the need to recruit and train staff every year on a yearly basis at around the same time that you are doing your planning for the program. And so a little bit more about that, I would agree with the first speaker, would have been helpful in understanding a little bit more of the project management.
Thanks, Kendra. Other comments?
I wanted to just highlight the evaluation and the assessment comments and notes that they made. It looks very robust in terms of the way that they're going back and actually advising future plans and looking at programmatic aspects of what they're doing. I also wanted to just say that their Facebook page I thought was fantastic. It was very active and supports the nature of the programming, even more so than the Notre Dame websites. I thought it really showed more the nature of it. It had students that were being served, and it created that more compelling case for support that I'm not sure I got from the website themselves. I thought they did a better job of representing their marketing through that. And would also, from a first year evaluator standpoint, the timeline for planning, it was really lacking for me. I know that it's based on what they've done in the past, but for someone who didn't know anything about the program, it may have been a little more challenging. They were more highlighting the critical dates and events of things, but didn't have the planning and all that community collaboration that they had leading up to it, which are really important pieces of what they have as a program.
Thanks, Eric. Others? Want to be sure we give everyone a chance if they have additional comments. So, okay, let's do this. We'll take a pause, a minute or two to finalize scores, update your online comments, and then give me a heads up when you're complete, and then we'll get on to the next application. Thank you. Okay, does anyone need additional time at all? Okay, great. Let's go to the third application. This is the South Bend Chamber Singers from St. Mary's College. And the first speaker is Trina.
Yes, can you all hear me?
We can.
Okay. Like you said, this is the South Bend Chamber Singers, and I was very impressed with this application. Of course, they've been in business for a while, but the organization has simplified the project. Their discipline is music, and they have simplified their project description as a sense of adventure regarding musical performance and openness to the unfamiliar, which has the power to transcend a willingness to discern beauty in new forms and appreciation of the power of music to communicate. I think this totally exudes the artistic quality. Getting to the community engagement then, this organization is out only not only geographically, but looks to those groups and communities who would appreciate what they do. They also seed collaborations that can enhance the visibility of the underserved or underappreciated groups. They continue to explore original partnerships with local organizations such as the Hannah's House, the Jewish Federation and of St. Joe County, and others. Their methods of evaluation include sales tickets, surveys, and free tickets. As far as project management, their director has been in place for 31 years. She is an expert and has a strong artistic vision for the organization. She uses a very competent and qualified board members and guests. This organization seems to be very financially stable for these projects. And my final comments, the organization has a very sophisticated reputation and is very qualified for these projects. If I have to pick something that they are short on based on this application, I would like to see a little more detail on how they use their social media. And that's all I have to say.
Great. Thanks, Trina. Very well done. Let's go to Eric.
Thanks, Trina, for that. And to add to that, I would again say that they're drawing on a great template that they've been doing for 31 years. And yet at the same time, after 31 seasons, I appreciate that there's still a desire for them to forge new partnerships and collaborations. For instance, in March of 2021, they are partnering with the South Bend Lyric Opera, which is an organization they've never worked with before. So that idea of trying new things even after that time, that shows good leadership, because certainly after that many years, it can get easy to fall into the same patterns. Community engagement. Let's see. I really felt, as Trina had mentioned, the summary, the funding is really to produce these four concerts. I was actually thinking that a lot of their community engagement, which helps advise what goes into these, they even do workshops and have mentoring programs. Those are things that, if I were writing this, I would want that to be a little more front and center in the project description itself. So I don't think it doesn't hurt the application. You just had to dig into it, but I would urge looking at what is really important in terms of the strategies through IDEA to make sure that people know that they're getting out into the community and providing these other great services for underserved and collaborating with community organizations. The culminating projects are these great concerts that they do. But I was very impressed, and a very robust, again, evaluation and assessment tools that they use. So I was very happy with this, very pleased with it.
Great, thanks, Eric. We'll open it up to all panelists for additional or opposing comments.
I would just like to point out, I really enjoyed the video they provided, that informational video that kind of explained what their organization was and what they did was really, really well done. And I thought it did a great job of kind of explaining who they are and what their purpose was. So I was glad to see that included. I thought their section on community engagement had a lot of information about what they've done in the past. And I think it would have been a little bit easier to read had it been more focused on what you're doing specifically for this year's project. Like that information is helpful, but maybe not include so much of it so that it's not as hard to pick out what your focus is for this year's project. And then one last thing I would say, if you are going to include a link to a social media site, such as the Instagram page that was listed here, make sure it has content. There wasn't any content, at least when I clicked on it, for the applicant's Instagram page.
Good comments. Thank you, Jessica. Anyone else? Okay. We will give you all a little bit of time. Give me a heads up when you're done with your updating or adding to any of your comments, and then we'll get started. Okay, has everyone had enough time to update? Great, appreciate everyone's work. We'll go on to the next application. And the next application is the Syracuse Turkey Creek Public Library. And Mary is our first speaker.
Thank you. This is
Dave,
a
sorry to
first
interrupt. This is Kayla. I just wanted to make sure we do have a conflict with this application, Trina Hoy, and I just wanted to make sure that she is on hold. I believe our IIC tech member should be doing that, but I just wanted to make sure ahead of time.
Thank you, Kayla. Yes, yep. I should have mentioned Trina was to be put into the hold center. So
sorry about that.
Mary.
I am not in the hold center yet.
Yep, Trina, what's going to happen is I'm going to put you in the waiting room, and it'll probably just be like a on hold signal, and then I'll let you back in when we're ready, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, Mary, go ahead and continue.
Oh, that's all right. This is the Syracuse Turkey Creek Public Library. This is their first year in doing this sort of a program. And I was really impressed with them trying to fill a void in their community. A local art studio closed, and the person who ran it moved to Florida. They had gotten some really strong feedback from the community about the desire to do this type of project, namely a ceramic-based type of art. And they really did, I thought, a great job of finding a known artist who is willing to work with them, work within their budget constraints and parameters, and provide a quality, low-cost program to their patrons based on their feedback. And another thing, too, that really struck me, and being from a rural area myself, you just don't have in a small community the opportunities to do these kinds of things that you would in maybe a South Bend or an Elkhart or a larger area. So I really was impressed with them putting a lot of thought into this and listening to the feedback from their patrons and providing that. I also thought they did an excellent job in identifying ways to promote the program throughout the community in their media, in their flyers and advertising, and also through their social media pages, just really ensuring they hit a variety of demographics with people who might chance to see that at the library or chance to see it on Facebook or perhaps in the newspaper or hear about it on the radio, just to ensure everyone has an opportunity to be aware of that. Also, something they wanted to do in this was ensure that people who may have a financial hardship that would otherwise prohibit them from taking part in this type of program will be able to do so. Just again, a lot of thought put into the things that might be barriers to this, anticipating them and trying to work around them. And they have someone on their staff. Some of their supporting materials were posters that had been done, posters and flyers for prior programs. Very nice job, very graphically pleasing, not too busy, colorful, gets your attention. And the classes also will be offered at different times to help provide access to people with varying schedules. So I just thought, all in all, they did a great job of identifying potential barriers and addressing those.
Great. Thank you, Mary. Kendra.
So I would like to add a little bit to what the first speaker just said. I agree that the application highlighted a very strong commitment to continual artistic experiences in their community, and the first speaker talked about the background of that. I would disagree a little bit with the community engagement. I found the application could have been strengthened with a few things. I thought the application demonstrated a desire to meet the needs of the targeted adult rural population, but the application did not describe sufficiently enough for me how that community would really be a part of the program planning, other than the application called it "word of mouth will propel this project forward." And I would have liked more information in that. They have great advertising and some things, but that part didn't feel like it would be able to really get to the entire community. It would be much more of a select population that happened to come into the library. In addition, the application could have been strengthened by including whether there would be more artistic demonstrations and discussions and themes that had been mentioned in terms of why the local artist was chosen. So I would have liked to see a connection between the talents of the local artists that was chosen to help lead this program with the community, and how that would be active and ongoing, and then increase the overall engagement level. Other than that, I found the goal of the particular program, its application was well written, and that it was overall a very great endeavor.
Great. Thanks, Kendra. Appreciate those comments. Let's open it up to all panelists for additional or opposing comments.
I also would add that while the participant audience was mostly defined, I think there are a few details that could be added related to any strategy for the idea strategies, the inclusion and the diversity and those in that area. I thought the poster samples were also very good. I the social media links did not work for me, and I don't know if they're entered incorrectly or but it was coming up to Facebook and to Instagram, but I was absolutely not getting Syracuse Public Library or Syracuse Pub Lib on the Instagram account either. So technical things, but important when it comes to this being the thing that you can base your scores on.
Thank you, Eric. Others? Okay. Thank you all for your comments. I'll give everyone just a minute or so to update your scores and comments, and then we'll move to the next application.
Trina should be back in the meeting now.
I see her back in. Welcome, Trina.
Thank you.
We're just finishing up, and then we'll move to the next application here in a moment. Okay, does anyone need any additional time? All right, great. Thank you very much. And we now have Trina back in the call as well. The next application is the Jewish Federation of St. Joseph Valley. And the first speaker is Eric. Eric.
Yeah, this application, their purpose in requesting the funds is for the 11th Michiana Jewish Film Festival for May of 2021. So already they're well ahead, very impressive. And I had noticed one of the reasons for that and the artistic quality, I'd really appreciated the details of how they go about selecting the films. A lot of detail added into the application, but it was well written, and it really made sense even to me, who's not a film buff or film critic. I was able to follow how they're able to really narrow that down with very, very specific criteria among a fairly diverse group of folks from the Federation. And they used some varying areas to get a lot of involvement from different groups. So I thought that was very well done from the artistic quality side. I thought the targeted audience was more broadly defined, but they had great data that they had kept on the actual attendees that have come in the past. And I think that really helps them in terms of advising what they're going to do for the future. This was a very well written section. The details they kept, for instance, the ages that they were able to track of their attendees, it actually allowed them to have specific goals for the next time, including bringing more youth attendance to the festival. I thought there were clearly efforts to address IDEA strategies and increase the access, address barriers, and diversify participants. I thought I could have used a little more detail with how they were going to engage the non-Jewish community. They did mention providing vouchers for free tickets for those who were financially unable, but that was a minor critique and a very, very strong description. Their survey, the way that they had done and collected data was pretty amazing. A lot of digital, a lot of things done by hand at the event, and they were just able to capture those demographics that I'm sure a lot of not-for-profit organizations would love to have to be able to advise what they're doing. Their timeline, way ahead of the ball game. Had a lot of detail in that too, and it being the 11th film festival, they've got a good template for how that goes, and working with the DeBartolo Performing Arts Center. Thought it was a very well written application.
Good. Thank you, Eric. We'll go to Jessica as the next reader.
I would second everything that Eric said. Definitely, this was a very strong application. The only things I would add is they do provide great demographic data on past audiences. I would have liked it to be a little more explicit about what their goals were for this year's project. You know, they mentioned wanting to increase young adult attendance, but I was curious if they had any other goals with any other demographics, or more explicitly, what would a successful film festival look like for them? In addition, I also thought that the timeline was very detailed, and it's clear that a lot of thought and organization has gone into the planning of this project. I thought it was great to see that they're able to get so many in-kind donations as well. Just really impressive.
Good. Thanks, Jessica. Let's open it up to all panelists for additional or opposing comments.
This is Trina.
Go right ahead, Trina.
Okay. This is one comment that I wanted to say about this particular grant application, which I thought was really, really good. However, I'm kind of, I'm not, when it comes to acronyms, the acronyms that they used were a little confusing and sometimes distracting from the application text. That's all I have to say about that. If they could have done something easier for me, like the DPAC and the IDEA and the ADA, and it was a little distracting to me.
Great. Thanks, Trina. Other comments? Okay. We'll provide a moment or two to update scores and add additional comments. Give me a heads up when you're complete, and then we'll get started. Thank you. Okay. Does anyone need additional time? Okay, looks like we're good. We'll go to the next application. This is the LGBTQ Center, and the first speaker is Trina.
Can everyone hear me?
We can.
Okay. So I thought this was a great idea. The idea of the LGBTQ Center holding a queer film festival in South Bend is intriguing and certainly needed, as the LGBTQ are underserved The purpose has been clearly spelled out as, and here's their mission statement. The LGBTQ Center promotes equality, builds community, and increases understanding of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer experiences. They meet these critical needs through resources and programs. So the purpose of selecting participating artists demonstrates a clear effort to create high quality experiences, as many have been involved in the same type of event in other areas, such as Indianapolis. The product description and documentation has been very well documented. And as far as the community engagement goes, I have to do some, okay. They do describe who they want to serve. However, I would like to see more detail on how they would engage these people. They indicate their event will be held in a venue that is handicapped accessible. And it seems like the social media is good. However, I would like to see more detail on how they would use it for community engagement. And as far as project management, there is enough staffing and engagement to carry out, and there is a very well thought out project timeline. Yes, there seems to be enough funding for the financial statement, and their financial statement seems to be solid and reasonable. The idea of holding an LGBTQ film festival in South Bend, Indiana is indeed unique and could be controversial to some, but it's an admirable feat. I really appreciated the effort. I would like to see more detail in how they would use social media and how they would try to involve non-LGBTQ people without being patronizing or polarizing, I mean. I would like to see an educational piece detailed in this. I mean, I think that it has an educational feel to it that could be used in other ways. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Trina. Let's go to.
And I have to echo Trina. I'm very impressed with the concept. I think it is a very trailblazing idea for a festival. And I applaud the organizers for looking at what is working elsewhere in Indiana, in Bloomington and Indianapolis, as resources for this first of a kind event in South Bend. I would like to see more detail in the application about how they will survey audience members in order to gather feedback. Will this be done through paper surveys? Will this be done in real time using tablets and devices? How is that feedback going to be gathered? Or maybe a mix of the two to make sure you're getting people at various comfort levels with technology weighing in on that. As to the project management portion, the executive director's project management experience with large events and prior service on the Indianapolis LGBTQ Film Festival Committee will definitely serve you well in putting this event together. Your timeline does seem well thought out. As for the funding, I did see that there is a very strong reliance on grants to fund this project, and I'm just wondering what would happen if some of that did not materialize, if you would be planning to maybe scale back what you're doing, or if having some of that funding not materialize at all would put this festival in jeopardy. But again, I think it is a very provocative and I think well thought out concept, and am really impressed with using expertise, what's worked elsewhere, to be able to bring this type of thing to South Bend, because as with anything, you've got to start somewhere.
Great. Thank you, Mary. Let's open it up for all panelists. Any new, additional, or opposing comments?
I would like to add a comment. The application does mention both the use of paper and electronic surveys. So it does list both of them. So various comfortabilities with tech would be addressed. The second speaker is right. It doesn't give much information about what they would do with them other than to give surveys. But I just wanted to note that. And I would agree with both of the speakers that the application highlights a quality idea, but true community engagement is not well detailed. The application alludes to a panel, which would be very engaging with the community, but it only lists it as something that will be evaluated. It doesn't give a lot of explanation with that. And that could be a really powerful piece that could really strengthen the community engagement of this application.
Thanks, Kendra. Other comments?
I'd like to add, I also agree, they're using two great templates from which to base their event, and they provided the links to those very high quality websites and promotional materials from festivals. I thought that maybe just a little alluding to what they could do to make it their own in South Bend would have been a nice touch. And just to, you know, what are some of the ideas to give it a little bit of that flair, even though you know you're going to model your festival off of the one in Indy and Bloomington. And I just wanted to mention one thing from the budget. I thought based on the number of expected attendees, I thought that their line item for the programs was really out of line. I didn't quite understand that, and it was a $3,000 chunk, and it was, you know, you're roughly looking at a run of maybe 150 programs. So I wasn't sure, unless it's a really elaborate, and I didn't know if that was something anyone else caught. Not something I would change a score on, but it was a bit of it was a question I would have for them if I were asking directly.
Great. Thanks, Eric. Other comments? Okay. Thank you for your comments. Let's take a moment or two here to finalize scores and upline or update online comments.
Mary, as you do that, I'm going to put you into the waiting room for this next application. So you'll just see a blank screen, but you can continue to update your scores.
Thanks, Brett.
Okay, she's in the waiting room.
Okay, thank you. Okay, does anyone need additional time? All right, thank you very much. Brett has put Mary into the waiting room. So we'll start with the next application, the Starke County Youth Club. And our first speaker is Jessica.
I thought overall this was a very well done application. There's a clear goal for this arts project that clearly fills a demonstrated need in the community. They provided really great detail on the importance of their project and the benefits it would provide for students. And you can really see that there was an effort to create a very high quality experience. I enjoyed that they shared a lot about the strategies they have for gathering input, the surveys, the community meetings, the social media polls. I thought that the varied methods would really help reach a wide variety of community members. And I really appreciated how they built time into the process so they can actually incorporate that feedback into the programming. It wasn't something that was just done and then just to do it, but they're actually going to utilize that feedback and make changes that will benefit the programming, which I thought was really great. It was clear that they were thinking about how to use the IDEA strategies to address barriers and really created some viable solutions to address those issues in their community. The outcomes desired and the plans to measure their success was also very clear. I thought there was definitely appropriate staffing to run the project. One question I did have was they mentioned that they have 30 members of direct service staff, but in the financials they provided, they indicated that they had about $44,000 in management expenses per year. So it wasn't clear if those staff members were paid or volunteer, because it seemed a little bit low to have just $44,000 of expenses for a staff of 30. So just more information about that would have been helpful. But overall, I thought this was a very well-written application full of great detail with regards to community engagement.
Good. Thanks, Jessica. Our second speaker is Kendra.
I would wholeheartedly concur with Jessica, the first speaker, that this is a well-written application. I appreciated how they also had, similar to the first speaker, that they had the very purposeful goals that wanted to harness the power of art to help form a vibrant community that also tied into learning standards and overall objectives that were greater in terms of bringing culture and art and learning all together. So they were looking at the whole child, and I thought that was admirable. I have nothing to add in terms of community engagement. Jessica hit on all of it, and I appreciated how they gave the community several opportunities to voice their ideas, and we're focused on including the working parents as well as the students. The only concern I have, and I want to reiterate, it's a well-written application, so this is a minor concern, is that in the timeline and in the goals, it speaks of things like a curriculum map and planning process, and that things are aligned to standards, but that the lesson is adapted for several different grades. And so I was curious in terms of those learning objectives, which are crucial in helping to drive their overall goals and focus. Who was determining those curriculum map learning goals? Were they getting input from the school, since this is hosted at the school? Maybe they could combine efforts. But that's just a minor suggestion as a way to further strengthen the application.
Good. Thank you, Kendra. Appreciate those good comments. Let's open it up to all panelists for any additional or opposing comments.
I'd add that their standardized tools, again, was what Kendra had just mentioned in terms of having those is fantastic. I really liked the fact that they had a third-party evaluator to help summarize that data. That's impressive, and it, I thought, really adds to the credibility of what they'd be doing as far as accountability for these programs.
Good. Thanks, Eric. Others? Okay. Thank you all for your comments. We'll take a moment here to update scores and comments, and then we'll move to the next application.
I'll be letting Mary back in the room now.
Thank you, Brett.
The virtual room, I guess. And she's back.
Welcome back, Mary. We're just updating scores, and then we'll move to the next application. All right. Does anyone need additional time for comments or updating? All right, thank you very much. Let's go to the next application. This is from the Trustees of Indiana University South Bend. Eric is going to be our first speaker. Eric.
Yeah, thank you. The project is very clearly described. This is the IU South Bend Piano Series, and this is actually its second year. They are scheduled to bring in 3 very high quality performing artists in the months of October, February, and April to do sort of a 3-pronged approach to community outreach. They're going to provide a public concert, master classes for the students at the school, and they're also going to be working with local schools for school outreach. I really was impressed by the YouTube links that they provided showing the high quality artistic examples of these artists, which are truly very impressive that we could have something like this coming to South Bend. I wish that I could have seen examples if they were available of the interactions of the artists engaging with the students or examples of their masterclass and school outreach. Performance was just one aspect of it, and I thought that real key engagement piece was really with the schools and also the master classes. So it would have been a recommendation to add. In terms of their community engagement, I thought that they very clearly defined the student demographics at IUSB that they would be addressing, as well as the demographic of the local schools and the students that would be served, and they very clearly described that audience. I thought they did a wonderful job of addressing the idea strategies. They were very clearly outlined in the application. They hit them one at a time, great attention to each of those 4 areas of inclusion, diversity, and whatnot. It was really, really nice to see that level of detail. For their evaluation, I thought that they had a great assessment tools that they built in to address both the public and the adult participants. And they had great social media with anecdotal data monitoring. A suggestion I would have for future edition would maybe be online surveys for public attendees to gain additional feedback. I thought they might be missing some of that to help advise future programs. And obviously, I think they clearly defined very highly qualified, experienced staff. They've got the benefit of interdepartmental collaboration to help them with marketing and fundraising, and their planning capacity is well in place.
Good. Eric, thanks very much. Good comments. The second reader is Trina.
Well, I concur with everything. Add is that they are a worldwide known organization, and they do excellent work. And this grant was, well, I think they covered everything to me. I was very impressed.
Any other comments, Trina? Okay. Trina, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can now. I just want to be sure we got all of your comments.
Oh.
Okay, we're having maybe a little audio challenge with Trina. So Let's open it up for comments from the entire panel. Any additional new or opposing comments?
I just have a couple of things I would like to add. Again, I concur with everyone. This was a very, very strong application. And I love the outreach to public schools and to students to ensure low-income youngsters who may not otherwise be able to attend such a performance will have that opportunity. I was wondering if any thought had been given to transportation partnerships, as that can sometimes be a barrier as well for them to be able to attend something like that. Just a suggestion, certainly not anything I would knock points off the grant application for at all. And I also thought the marketing materials were great, but would like to see something directed at young people and their families in terms of marketing as well. Just again, to make sure to reach that demographic. You have really done a lot to try to serve with this program.
Very good comments, Mary. Anyone else?
I have one comment that I would like to add, actually two. One, I completely concur with the other panelists that the interaction with the local schools and with the students at South Bend is a very strong piece that they could expand upon and make their what is already a strong application even stronger. One of the issues that I had when the application was describing what this particular program was and its goals was that while the application demonstrated a strong passion for bringing piano and its art to the area, it really highlighted the reputation of IUSB and the Ernestine and Racklin School of the Arts, almost more so than how the community would benefit. And so I wanted to make sure that the applicant recognized a more balanced manner in demonstrating the passion for piano for all and not just the prestige of your school would actually strengthen the application as well.
Thank you, Kendra. Other comments? Okay, great. We'll give you all a little bit of time here to update and add additional comments. All right, does anyone need additional time? Okay, great. Let's move to the next application, the United Religious Community, and our first speaker is from Kendra.
Hello, this application is the United Religious Community hosting a North American Interfaith Networks conference, a musical performance, in other words. It is its inaugural year. And for me, this application demonstrated a wide variety and diverse focus on musical artists, but there was, despite the diversity of the musical artists, there was an omission as to how the dialogue and cultural awareness and how the musical performance overall would create a unique opportunity for all of these participants in the community together to really benefit from this particular musical performance. I would also say that in terms of artistic quality, to further strengthen the application, more information about the overall goal would have been more helpful. There's a mission from the United Religious Community, and it's beautiful. It's about encouraging religious cooperation, effective constructive social change, and to serve as advocates for those seeking to meet life's basic needs. And so I would have really liked to have seen how this particular performance was going to help bring about those particular group goals. So I wanted to point that out right away about the application. In terms of community engagement, there's clear evidence that they have plans, that they are wanting to have evaluation of what happens in the performance to continue on. But exactly how that looks and how they want that to go, they want that to be brought about would be excellent in making it even stronger as an application. And then in terms of projects, sorry, I lost my mouse. Okay, it's all good here. In terms of project management, there is a detailed timeline, and it's evident that the program leaders they're actually highly qualified and they have experience and they do a lot of different things. I was almost wondering if they were doing too much. Not too much in terms of the program itself, but the person in charge is also in charge of other things. And it felt like the application has great intentions, but I needed more details to know exactly how they were going to bring those intentions about realistically.
Okay, thank you, Kendra. We'll move to Eric. Eric, we need to have you on mute. Sorry.
Thank you. I was the first one to do that. I was hoping I wouldn't be the first one.
You sounded really good, but we couldn't hear you.
Good. Thanks, Kendra, I don't have a lot to add to that. I was also a little confused on the timeline. I wasn't sure if the applicant might have in fact misunderstood it. It didn't provide a lot of detail before July 1st, and that may have been a confusing piece of the application in terms of the funding year versus your planning year, because certainly a lot of planning would have to have had gone on before July 1. Jumping back up to the top of our evaluations, I wanted to add in I was very impressed by the list of potential performers for this music, and the fact that as their event is early in the IAC funding year, that they had a contingency plan based on whether or not they would receive funding. And I thought that was very appropriate, being so early in the funding year, but also from an event planning experience, to be able to be that nimble is a gift. And I thought they did a very nice job with that. I loved the addition of food, in terms of what they were doing with their application to help with that engagement of a lot of different audiences, and really giving a varied cultural experience for attendees and participants more broadly in the community. And their community engagement, actually going out and talking with their what was called the core 30 congregations, I thought that was really impressive, and demonstrated the applicant's willingness to seek and receive feedback and input about what they would do for this event. And it was well written. It had a few things that needed to be added, but otherwise very well done.
Good. Thanks, Eric. Let's open it up for other comments, new, opposing, or additional comments.
I think the other panelists covered it very nicely. One small thing I would add is I was a little confused about the inclusion of the DTSB and the South Bend Venue Parks and Arts links under their social media links. Not, I know they were planning on working with those organizations, but didn't quite see how links to their main general website was relevant to their application.
Thanks, Jessica. Other comments?
One thing I would point out, and I want to couch this in saying, I understand with the NPR radio spot, there are limits as to what you can do in an underwriting spot versus an advertising spot. But it was just a little bit confusing for an event that is not necessarily especially well known because it doesn't give a lot of information about it. And that might be something, just a piece of constructive feedback as you're trying to reach out to people to find a way to share a little bit more information without violating those public broadcasting guidelines on that.
Very good. Thanks, Mary. Other comments?
Am I allowed to add a second onto I wanted to note what Jessica's comment about the downtown South Bend. I really poured through those and I made a comment in my written notes. I wondered if it might have been linked through a calendar, but may have been changed due to the changes in our circumstance, which obviously is not a part of our evaluation, but I noted that as a concession that could have been maybe not the applicant's fault. I don't know in not including those. It was strange, I agree.
Thanks, Eric. Anyone else? Okay, good. Let's update scores and comments, and then we'll move to the last application.
Eric, as you go through this last scoring process, I'll move you to the waiting room. But don't leave because we're going to come back afterwards.
Okay, does anyone need additional time for comments? All right. We have Eric moved into the waiting room. We'll go with our final application from WNIT, Michiana Public Broadcasting Corporation. And our first speaker is Mary.
Thank you. This is, of course, WNIT, Michiana Public Broadcast Corporation, funding for the Experience Michiana weekly television program, and a very well-established, well-known program with a strong network of regional contacts in the Michiana area on which to draw for program ideas. And they are also in partnership networking with a lot of the regional convention and visitors bureaus and are utilizing both traditional and social media. So they have a very deep well and deep pool from which to draw. And in terms of community engagement, again, as an established program, the hosts and producers have a good sense of the community they serve. And it sounds like they also get good feedback from the artists and venues they feature on the program. A suggestion along those lines would be to maybe consider encouraging more engagement via social media channels, possibly a hashtag campaign or something of the sort, and maybe some quick online surveys just to maybe broaden that audience reach a little bit and maybe reach out to some younger viewers. Hashtag Experience Michiana, for instance, would be a suggestion. I'm very, very impressed with the experience the hosts and production team bring to the program. They are very knowledgeable about the regional arts scene, do a thorough job of researching and planning segments and managing their production schedules in order to work as efficiently as possible. Of course, this is a very spread out, very diverse region, and if they can go to an area and shoot several segments at once, that certainly helps with budgetary concerns as well as planning. So I'm very impressed and keep up the good work and continue moving forward with some of that momentum. I thought this was a very well done application. Again, a program that's been around for many years.
Thank you very much, Mary. We'll go to our second speaker, Jessica.
I think Mary did a great job of summarizing, and I thoroughly agree that this was a very well done application. Don't really have anything new to add. I think I would just say that I thought it was very impressive how many recommendations WNIT receives per month for suggestions of new experiences that they should showcase. I think they said something like 80 a month, which I thought was pretty impressive. So
Great. Thanks, Jessica. Let's open it up to additional, new, or opposing comments from the rest of the panelists.
I have a comment to add. This comment is about community engagement. In terms of community engagement for this application, I found it difficult to determine whether the program was truly promoting community engagement or public benefit. And part of that is due to the fact that it mentions a lot of its viewership. But when you look at the number of direct participants in the program, we're really talking about 260 adults, 21 children, and 105 artists. And all of that is very admirable, and it's a great program and well-written application. But I found that a lot of the mention of the viewership of the show made it difficult to examine the application based on what the criteria was. And so that would be one thing that I would encourage the applicant to think about in terms of their application.
Thanks, Kendra. Other comments? Okay, let's take a few moments to update scores and comments, and then we'll get back together.
I'm going to let Eric back into our virtual room here.
Thank you, Brett.
And he's back.
Great. Thanks, Eric. We're just finishing up just a moment, and we'll have be back. Okay, does anyone need additional time for updating? Okay, thank you very much. This concludes the review panel. I want to take a moment just to thank certainly all of the panelists and the applicants for being a part of this review. I want to spend additional thanks for the work that Kayla and the IAC staff has done to coordinate this in such a smooth way. All applicants will be notified of the status of their grant in late June following the IAC's quarterly business meeting. If you have any questions on anything at all, please contact Kayla Myers at the Community Foundation of St. Joseph County at 574-232-0041. Again, thank you all for participating.
Thanks, Dave. And I think that Brett will go